Hi, welcome back to the Masterclass series where we explore all of the essential elements and how they inform a deeper understanding of the tarot. Today's class is on the element Earth, and we will be covering cosmological correspondences, getting pretty deep into it, and we'll also be talking a lot about how Earth corresponds to the Pentacle suit of the tarot. Welcome in. If you like what you see, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for the next installment and future series on different aspects of the tarot cards as they relate to esoteric symbolism and wisdom. And while you're here, leave a comment below on what is the first thought that comes to mind when you think about the element Earth. Thanks. Hello and welcome to the Masterclass series on Earth. We have gone through air and fire so far, and we've learned all of the wisdoms that air and fire have to give us. And now it's time for us to investigate the wisdoms of our beautiful Earth beneath our feet. And there's much for it to offer. Based on your responses to the invitation, I added all of these keywords onto the slide here. And some of the more interesting elements of Earth here are the fact that it is a cosmic origin. So you would think that the grounding nature of Earth would bring you down into the physical plane, but as we'll explore throughout this series, being one with Earth and being grounded into the Earth also means that you are cosmologically connected to the greater universe. And so with that being said, we're looking at the Muladhara chakra specifically, which is the root chakra. It is associated with Earth. And it's about groundedness, the connection to Earth, the sense of security and stability that you have within yourself. It's also connected to the adrenal glands. So it's that fight or flight response. So it's all about survivability, base needs, the foundation of physical structure and self-preservation that is required in order to be confident and healthy with full vitality in your physical body as a human being. It's also about innocence. So a lot of the basic structure and basic needs that we have as children. It's our inner child that feels the most confident and secure when surrounded by a foundation and structure. And so it's that innocence and playfulness and wisdom and purity that we receive from being fully and totally safe within our bodies and totally and fully safe within the construct and environment around us that allows us to have that connection. It's like a little wisp of purity coming from the heart and from the root up into the cosmos. And another really interesting thing about Earth is this concept called the Schumann resonance. So the Schumann resonance essentially is the space between Earth's electromagnetic surface and the ionosphere, which creates essentially like a cavity. So think like a tube for a fiber optic cable that transmits information from one end to another without changing it. So there's this tube around Earth. It's a spherical tube that's capable of acting as a variable waveguide. And a waveguide is that tube, that's what it's called in physics, is a waveguide. So you can also think of like antennae transmitting radio signals. So basically this electromagnetic energy creates a hum. So it's almost as if Earth has its own like singing voice. And if you were to be listening to Earth from Mars, it would have a certain resonant sound, a certain frequency that it emits. And in fact, we have these different frequencies occurring on different planets. Like we have the capability of measuring the different hums or the different sounds that other planets make as well. But for Earth specifically, the resonance or the hum, the music of Earth comes in at 7.83 hertz. And this 7.83 hertz is really important in terms of different spiritual practices, specifically with mantra meditation and the mantra Om. So Om is thought to produce the same 7.83 hertz resonant frequency. And Om as a mantra is frequently used to represent our cosmic origin and its creation. It's a sacred vibration which connects us to the greater cosmos. And if you think about it, Earth itself is, I mean, this is pretty obvious. Like Earth is part of the solar system. It's not separate or disconnected from the cosmological clock. And unlike humans, the Earth doesn't think its way out of its confinement. It simply exists within the construct of the physical limitations of the universe. Whereas for us, it's really easy to get trapped in the airy and fiery qualities of our being and our existence as material beings. We can flit around, we can go into the past, we can go into the future, we can get stuck in the present without being mindful. And so by using this mantra, Om, it's like you're reconnecting to that innate balance, that innate depth of simple understanding and simple connection with the greater cosmological clockwork. And so I wanted to show you guys just how similar this sound is. So when you take 7.83 hertz and you translate it into a note, it becomes B flat 2. Om. And that's the hum of Earth. And I think it's the most awesome thing in the world to think that our beautiful little Earth has its own little unique signature in time space. And also one of my favorite things to talk about is this harmonic resonance. Moving on to this next segment where we're going to start talking more about other cosmological significations of Earth, and specifically within the context of Vedic astrology, Gnosticism, and Indigenous practices of pantheism. And with regard to Vedic astrology, we were talking about Muladhara chakra as being the root. And in Vedic astrology, the south node, or Ketu, is the ruler of the Muladhara chakra. And Ketu is this body over here on the left-hand side. Ketu is a headless body. So it is all about the subconscious mind, past life experiences, utilizing internalized knowledge to gain wisdom and higher consciousness. It's about intuition and psychic powers. And it's our connection to our roots and ancestry and unconscious tendencies. So it is directly connected to these concepts of Earth that relate to non-thinking. Earth doesn't think about how it moves through the solar system, and nor does Ketu think about the reactions and the way in its place in the universe. It simply is, and it simply does, based on its own internalized understanding of self. On the other hand, we have Rahu, and Rahu is the north node of the moon, and it is the head. And Rahu oftentimes represents the concept of Maya, and Maya is illusion. So you can think about Maya as a prism. So if you have pure light, let's say pure light, the pure light of divinity, and it passes through a prism, Maya is the prism that then divides that light into all of the colors of the spectrum. And then the colors of the spectrum are the illusions that we play into. So we get enthralled by these different rainbow colors. We might be so consumed by being within this prism of multidimensional colors and realities that we get lost and trapped in this like illusory fantasy land, and we want to stay there and we want to play there. And so Rahu has this capability of leaving us trapped within our thoughts, within our minds, within our heads. And so the whole idea between this axis, this polarity axis of Ketu and Rahu, is to unify the two in such a way that you bring Kundalini Shakti, which is it lives in the Muladhara chakra, Kundalini Shakti is the snake. It's this powerful divine feminine energy. And you want to raise it up all the way through your head, up to the third eye, and bursting out through the crown. And in doing so, by aligning the body with the mind, you are capable of pretty much anything, being able to see the illusion for what it is. And what the illusion is really the materials, the function of the illusion is for us to then create, and to create something based on our own idea of our autonomous kingdom of God, which for us is our inner divinity, accessing our inner divinity in whatever way we can, being the magician, bringing down the divine consciousness into the earth and creating and manifesting that which we desire. So this cosmic energy that's accumulated in the base of our spine, when it travels up the central nadi of the spine called Sushumna, and when you reach that point of awakening, you start to realize that in the material world on our earth, we live in a lot of dualities, and divinity or cosmic force or the cosmic soup of consciousness is not actually dual. There aren't separate parts to it. The cosmic soup, divine consciousness, God, is a single bubbling primordial pot of stuff and potentiality and all of existence. Everything that ever was and everything that ever can be exists within it. And so when we go through the different stages of materialization, that is when duality starts to appear to us, because the different elements of the cosmic soup start to separate themselves into individuated parts. And so in the material world, where we have our Maya, where we have our illusory existence, we have these dualities. And so when we talk about Earth, it's really important to talk about these polarities, and specifically Rahu and Ketu, but we'll also be getting into polarities in the zodiac signs later on when we talk specifically about the tarot cards. But these polarities are a means by which we can create a cumulative whole understanding of these different aspects of Earth that are more cosmological and complicated in origin. Now, I also wanted to talk about Gnosticism, because in Gnosticism, there's a very similar type of concept called the pleura, the pleroma. And so the pleroma is essentially this cosmic soup, primordial energy of potentiality. And from that energy of potentiality, there's a desire to individuate and a desire to materialize. And that's the form of fire that we spoke of in earlier lessons, that flame of fire that ignites desire to become. And so from each emanation from the pleroma, there are two aeons. They're called aeons because they are divine feminine and divine masculine polarities moving together into greater materialization. Now, this lady over here, she's called Sophia, and Sophia is the rebellious aeon that decided to say, I don't want to deal with, having a balanced pair. I want to do my own thing. I'm just going to destabilize the pleroma and emanate all by myself. And in doing so, she completely destabilized the pleroma and brought about the creation of Earth and brought about the creation of even greater materiality all the way down to the human soul, to the human body. And so again, we're starting to see this thread, like the importance of duality, but also the importance of individuation, and also the importance of separating oneself from thinking about duality as well, and thinking about these duals working together in union, and being more of a spectrum and less so of separate parts, but things that come together and work and form a whole. And in this way, we have Earth representing that as well. And we have the Earth's north and south poles, and the north and south poles of the Earth, they come together and create an electromagnetic shield that protects us. And so this is the same cosmological origin of divinity as well. It's like a microcosmic reflection of the macrocosm of divinity. I know it's a lot, but we start contextualizing these concepts a lot when we talk about Indigenous cultures and their pantheistic views. Something that I really admire about Indigenous cultures in general is their ability to see and naturally gravitate towards the concepts of seeing divinity in all things in the natural world. So in Indigenous cultures, oftentimes all living and non-living things on Earth, so anything on Earth, has a spirit, and that spirit is a natural connection to the divine. And specifically, a really beautiful story from the Mi'kmaq people of Canada describe how Bear, the spirit of Bear, became the keeper of the medicines. And so I want to read you guys this story because it really signifies this connection, this understanding of simply being without getting lost in the illusions of the head and being lost in the illusions of the prismatic, beautiful colors, and simply being connected with the body and the mind, and having that little thread coming from the root and the heart directly into the cosmic origins. So I quote the story about how Bear became the keeper of the medicines. As the people sit in a sacred circle, the ceremony began with the lighting of the sacred pipe, and as the pipe was shared with the people, a story was told. The story told of why we must always honor the bear spirit. In the fall of the year, we honor him for his long fast and the journey he is about to make into the spirit world for medicines for the people. In the spring, we honor the bear for the medicines he brings back from his long journey. In both ceremonies, a woman of the bear clan prepares the feast for the bear, and in both ceremonies, a song is sung to honor Muin. And so it continues to this day. Muin tills and fertilizes the ground to help plants grow, and during the long, cold winter, he journeys to the spirit realm to seek medicines for the people. And each year, in the fall and the spring, native people gather together for a feast in his honor. And what this story really explains and expresses is this idea that the animals around us, they also enter this spirit world. They enter into this divinity. And because of their greater connection to us and because of our connection to them, we have communion with them. We can have ceremony and ritual that can bring us closer to this divinity and cosmic origin. And we're able to be in a symbiotic relationship. And so there's a lot of this honor of the animals in Indigenous culture that is so utterly beautiful. And it even comes down to plants. It is said that in South America, the ayahuasca vine communicated with the medicine men and women in dreams and visions and taught them how to combine the vine with the mimosa leaf to produce the brew that we know today as the ayahuasca brew. And if you don't know what the ayahuasca brew is, it is a DMT-based brew with a MAO-I inhibitor. So the ayahuasca vine is the MAO-I inhibitor, and all it does is it helps DMT get digested more slowly in the system, so it doesn't just, last for 10 minutes. It lasts for, I think, like 8 to 9 hours. And at the same time, this mimosa leaf is boiled with it, and the mimosa leaf is what contains the DMT. And if you think about just how many species of plants there are in the Amazon, it seems more than coincidental that this type of relationships that the medicine men and women in the Amazon jungle were able to combine these two plants to create such a potent healing brew that has been used for many thousands of years within their culture. I mean, that's a lot of trial and error, if you ask me. But I'm also the type of person who likes to believe in a lot of things. So I leave it up to your discretion and your own scholarly study as well. So the point here is that we participate in a cycle. So Earth is cyclical. We have seasons. We move around the sun. The zodiac belt moves around us. The cosmos are never staying the same. It's not stagnant. Here on Earth, everything changes over time. What we saw a million years ago is completely different than what we see now. And so accessing the divine cosmic connection through ritual, through ceremony, and practice of honoring the land and living in harmony with it is also living in harmony with the cyclical nature of Earth. It's about it living in harmony with death and rebirth, and being a part of the animal kingdom as we are is accepting and living outside of the mind and living outside of the realm of illusion, because we are capable of manifesting and because we are capable of creating. We have the power to be able to ritualize, and we have the power to make manifest the divine on Earth and also achieve our true potentiality as humans. This is the power of the earth element. The earth element creates that grounding within us. That Muladhara chakra creates that safety. It creates that potentiality within us. And all we have to do is cultivate it, just as we would cultivate and fertilize land to create crop. We have to do the same within ourselves to live in harmony with the cycles of Earth. All right. So moving away from this more like abstract and complicated picture, we start thinking about the abundance of materials on Earth. So Earth is so ripe, so ripe, so much beautiful stuff on Earth, from plants to insects to animals to minerals to crystals and metals. Everything that we use in our day-to-day existence, everything that we have in our abundant lifestyles in this civilization is thanks to the earth, is thanks to everything that exists on the earth, and also thanks a little bit to our human ingenuity. And in the early days of Earth, planetary bodies collided, asteroids peppered Earth's surface. I mean, it was chaos incarnate. And as a result, we have remnants of that chaos that we can investigate, called the Kuiper belt, which is a belt of asteroids on the outside-ish of the solar system that contains a bunch of different asteroids and a bunch of different like half-shaped planetary formations that could be remnants of an early Earth as well. And thanks to all of this chaos from the early times of Earth, we have really rare metals such as tungsten and gold that we wouldn't otherwise be able to find. And so thanks to that, we're able to create all these different systems of commerce, the houses that we live in, the ability to travel space with gold reflective shields to prevent the solar rays from completely blinding us. Everything that Earth provides us, whether it's from an external source or from the Earth itself, it is an inherently ripe, juicy little fruit. And while this might also seem a little bit obvious, it's important to consider the idea that Earth is self-sustaining. And it, as we talked about with the cycles, it's steadfast, self-sustaining, but it also changes slowly over time. We have the tectonic plates moving and shifting the continents, ramming them together to create brand new mountain ranges. We have lava flowing into water, creating more land. we have hot rock, this magma that cools and pressurizes and creates crystals and caverns. And so the earth is always changing shape. It has a completely different form every couple million years. And while it takes a long time for it to shift it does. And that's what gives the earth element the quality of stability. But at the same time, it gives the earth the quality of self-sustenance because of its ability to change and adapt, because of its ability to become a different ecosystem and support different life forms. We have that element of creation and destruction, which is an inherent divine feminine force. The divine feminine has the ability to both be the mother or the birther of children, and at the same time, and I'm talking conceptually, you know, like this isn't necessarily based on our bodies or our forms. It's mostly about the concept of creation and the concept of directiveness. Again, going back to duality, divine feminine being the capability of creating and the capability of refining and having value and having abundance. And so earth is very yin and very feminine in nature. So thanks to Earth's plenty, we can also assign Earth the qualities of wealth and prosperity, security, stability. And this is also where Earth's quality of being austere and hardworking comes in, because the austerity of Earth is very severe. It has no feelings about pressurizing crystals. It doesn't feel bad for the rock. It just does it. It just happens. It lives within the confines of physics. It doesn't have any thoughts about it. It simply does. And so that's where sometimes the earth element can come across as rugged and very mean and almost like it doesn't have any thought behind it at all. But it simply is working within the confines of this physical reality, and it doesn't really think about it. And because it doesn't really think about it, it is naturally subsisting, it's naturally utilizing the energy of this cosmic force, or it's naturally using the law of thermodynamics. It's just naturally moving through these processes, and it's not stepping beyond them. Okay. So moving on to how humans conceptualize Earth. So we're taking all these cosmic origins, and I'm talking about all this like divine stuff, but where exactly am I getting that from? And we have all of this knowledge, and we have all of this wisdom as humans because we are of the earth. We have the same cosmic origins. We have the same capability of connecting to Earth's natural magnetization, to Earth's natural yin force, to Earth's natural connection to the cosmic clock. And we express these different understandings of our nature through the archetypal gods and goddesses that we see throughout all of our different cultures. And the first that I wanted to speak to, well, actually, first I wanted to talk about how among these gods and goddesses, there are several really interesting key similarities. And the first of which is many of Earth gods and goddesses across cultures always have something to do with snakes. They always have a connection to snakes. They always have some sort of connection with the sky gods. They'll always have a connection to water or moisture. They always have a connection to death. And they always have offspring, which are further emanations of divine consciousness, but these offspring tend to also be more fallible. So the more offspring they have, and the offspring even below them, so their children and their grandchildren, they become more and more fallible as they become more proliferated, which I think is a very interesting point. to make about how the different emanations of cosmic force become more human as they materialize into greater form. So these goddesses, the female goddesses especially, they also have a streak of rebellion in them. So we were talking about Sophia, who was like, I don't need nobody. I'm just going to go and do my own thing. Gaia is the same way. And same with Makosh. They have this rebellious identity to them, and that speaks to the destructive nature of the feminine force, that the feminine force will simply expand and will simply create without any regard for anything else, because it just needs to be doing that. And it's also speaking to this cycle of life and rebirth again. And we also see a common thread that these gods and goddesses tend to be the gatekeepers and protectors of their creations. And so typically what that means is they have some role to play with the dead and the underworld. And so we see that with Geb. Geb is the father of snakes, and he is the son of Shu and Tefnut. And Shu and Tefnut are the deities of air and moisture. Geb was the personification of the fertile earth and the barren desert. And the barren desert contains the dead. And in order to set them free from their tombs to reach the land of reeds, they have to go through Geb. So before they even get judged against the feather of Ma'at, they have to go through Geb. And Geb, if he does not think that they are worthy of entering the land of reeds, he will open his jaws and imprison those who are not worthy in his jaws. And so he's kind of like the first line of defense for the Egyptian pantheon to really weed out the most worthy to enter the land of the reeds. And again, we have this connection with the snake. Oftentimes the snake is also related to the underworld in a lot of mythology. And that leads us to Gaia. And Gaia was actually the progenitor of the python snake. And the python snake was the protector of the oracle at her temple of Delphi. So the python would open its jaws and consume those who are not worthy of receiving the fortunes from the oracle at Delphi. And the Delphi oracles themselves were known as the Pythia, selected from the temple priestesses. Gaia was also the mother of Uranus, who is the god of the sky, with whom she created the Titans. And in her form of rebellion, she bore two children without sexual union. She simply created these two gods called Wiria of the mountains and Pontus of the sea. So again, we have these really common threads, snakes and being protectors of the underworld, having honor and the privilege of entering other levels of reality and other levels of consciousness. It's almost like Earth is a conduit. And in the same way that we have this element of fate, Makosh is known as the deity of moist earth, and the spinner of faith in the Slavic pantheon. So she's often depicted with a little sewing needle, and she's sewing the world on her lap here. And this thread is often corresponding to the umbilical cord, the thread of life. And it's also referring to the sheet that you are covered with in death, your death sheet. And so as the goddess of the mother of the harvest, she was also married to Perun, god of the sky. And she had an adulterous connection with the god Veles, who is the god of magic and the underworld, which links her again to the snake. So again, we have these very interesting threads between gods and goddesses across different cultures that link Earth and the element of Earth as being one of fate, as being a gatekeeper. It's almost like Earth is this stadium in which souls play and compete in order to gain honor and to work through their karmic cycle and to achieve liberation in order to have freedom from the confines of Earth in some way. Okay, so we talk about the Platonic solids and sacred geometry in my other series for air and fire. And I want to go over it again for anybody who is new here so that we can get on the same page. So the Platonic solids are any of the 5 geometric solids whose faces are identical, regular polygons, meeting at the same 3-dimensional angles. These are also known as the 5 regular polyhedra, and they contain a really beautiful symmetry and structural integrity that is used in many different models of engineering. So for example, if you were to take the tetrahedron and make a sphere out of a tetrahedron, so many tetrahedron stacked together and connected to make a sphere, you create a really stable sphere. And the tetrahedron is often associated with fire as well. All of the different Platonic solids have an elemental correspondence, but without getting too deep into it, I want to actually make an entire series devoted to sacred geometry. I just want to speak to the idea that in sacred geometry, we have a shape called the flower of life. And within the flower of life, we are able to create all of the regular polyhedra within this shape using the different vertices of the concentric circles. And these are 19 circles whose center points all intersect one another. The shape can expand infinitely, and it'll still contain the same properties, whether it's extremely large or extremely small. The smallest version of it and the biggest version of it are all the same, and they just have different dimensions. And from its vertices, we can create all the Platonic solids. We can create all the shapes of occult symbols like the Star of David, the Pentacle, the Christian cross, the Chacana from South America. This flower of life symbol is literally the container for all of the ideograms that we know and across all of the cultures in the world. Interestingly, this flower of life shape is extremely old. And the first known visual representation of it is in the Temple of Osiris in Abydos. And the Temple of Osiris was constructed between 1290 to 1279 BC. So it's one of the oldest structures. And what does it mean for our human stuff? What does it mean for our physical reality? Well, the flower of life directly corresponds to the different shapes of embryonic development. So we start with one circle, we have the embryo. We start with 2 circles, we begin the process of mitosis. And as mitosis continues, these concentric circles, they keep expanding and expanding until we reach almost this final form of the embryo before it starts actually shaping itself into different features of the human body. And that is the flower of life. And so in the same way that we can use the flower of life to understand our human shape and our human connection to everything else around us, we can use the seed of life to understand the principles of the Qabalah within the tarot. And the seed of life contains this shape here, which is called the tree of life. And this tree of life is a shape that comes up very consistently, specifically in the Rider-Waite Smith and the Thoth tarot decks. and the Golden Dawn Tarot deck as well. This tree of life, it is the multiple dimensions of worlds that start from the divine cosmic primordial soup and become greater and greater material emanations of human form. And what I mean by material emanations is like things crystallizing into actual reality. So if we're thinking of like this abstraction called the cosmic soup, this abstraction becomes more and more apparent to us, kind of like appearing to us out of thin air as if by magic. You know, it's like something shimmering into human form out of the blue. And so the way that things shimmer into form is through the tree of life and through these different worlds of emanation. And this is what it looks like when you create these different worlds. So each individual circle would be a seed, and each circle, when layered on top of the other, is the different worlds of emanation. So starting from the cosmic soup into a more material form, into a more material form, into an even more material form, until we get all the way down into actual human form and things that we can touch and feel and see and hear. And these same shapes directly correspond to the flower of life, the very central channel of the flower of life. We can also take it back down. So when we take it back down to the tree of life, we can take that tree of life and superimpose it onto a human shape. And that tree of life directly corresponds to the chakra system of the human body. So this concept of sacred geometry and this concept of the tree of life in the Qabalah is really integral to our understanding of the tarot, because the different worlds have different means by which they express themselves. So we already talked about fire, and with fire being emanation, it's that desire, that first initial spark of wanting to create, of wanting to experience. Earth is the actual action. Earth is asaya. It's literally everything we can touch, hear, smell, feel, hear. It's everything that we have in this existence. It's actually putting things into motion. It's the creation. It's also the very end and the very beginning, because once we die, we go back up Jacob's ladder and we go back up into the cosmic soup. This is the cycle. Whether you're coming from the perspective of like heaven and hell in Christianity, or you're thinking about it in terms of the Hindu karmic cycles, whatever cultural heritage you're coming from, there's always some degree of after death. There's something that happens that takes our souls somewhere, somehow, and transmutes that energy of our souls into something else. So when we're talking about Asaya, or the world of creation, we're talking about Malkuth, which is the final emanation of force, of cosmic force. And it's also called kingdom. And Malkuth is also called the kingdom of God. So the idea being that everything that ever is the kingdom of God, meaning that because we are a reflection of God, that we are also living in the kingdom of God. And some might even say that Malkuth in the kingdom is essentially like this Garden of Eden type of archetype. And so when we have this Garden of Eden and we decide to individuate and to separate ourselves from the Garden of Eden, so that would be like Eve taking a bite out of the apple of knowledge, we become separated from the kingdom of God, because through the bite of the apple, we start the process of individuating all over again. It's an endless cycle. So all of what we're talking about, these energies of the cosmos, they are perpetually ascending and descending from ethereal to gross form back to the ethereal. It's a process that occurs simultaneously. And it concretely includes the fact that the affected in all things or animate beings is distinct in degrees in all of the different worlds. So in the Jewish traditions, it's actually a ritualized thing to commemorate these different worlds of the Qabalah. And for the world of Asaya, you drink a cup of white wine or grape juice, and you honor Asaya with this first cup, the world of earth and the body. It's the world of distinction and separation, the world where resources are limited. And the Jewish people, they will pray for the health and abundance of all the trees and all life, praying to know what is ours to do to help bring forth healing and peace. And in Asaya, the fruits and nuts that are eaten are those with a hard outer shell. And what's important about this outer shell is the idea of there being a cosmic egg. So in the world of the kingdom of God, and the kingdom of God being like the whatever God wanted to create, it's this singular like little egg of God's creation that is defined by like a boundary. And so eating things with shells symbolizes that cosmic egg that the kingdom of God is. And going back to the Garden of Eden, eating the apple and breaking away from the kingdom of God is killing God and breaking out of the shell of the Garden of Eden and creating a new form. So again, going back to everything is constantly ascending and descending from ethereal to gross form. This is what happens as these different shells are broken open, potentiality bursts forth and then crystallizes again into a new form over and over and over again. All right. So now that we have this conceptual stuff out of the way, I just want to remind everybody that these are all different layers. So we have all of these different interpretations and meanings, and we have the gods, we have the essence of the element, we have the planets and the zodiac signs. These all in totality comprise the essence of the element Earth. However, the element of Earth can then shine through different prisms of light. And these different prisms of light will shine the brightest aspects of Earth in different ways. And that's what we call the zodiac signs. And this is also where tarot starts to dilute these different emanations of Earth into something that we can more comprehensively understand. So starting with the major arcana that I want to speak to, and another note too, that in our series with air, we included Virgo, the hermit, and I'm not including the hermit here because Virgo and the hermit are a lot more closely aligned with Mercury and the element air in terms of the major arcana than they are with Earth, in my personal opinion. However, the essence of Virgo still remains within the hermit, just in a different way. So speaking specifically to these three major arcana cards for Earth, I'm looking at Taurus, Capricorn, and the world. I'm sorry, the Hierophant, the devil, and the world. So the Hierophant is all about value. And specifically within the value and spiritual integrity of like formalized religious spaces. And so Taurus likes to create containers in which the best, most refined version of what it wants can exist. And it creates its own homeliness, its own space within which it can exist in its own version of Garden of Eden. And so in the same way, religious structures and dogmatic structures like Christianity and Hinduism, etc., they also create their own little containers within which a Garden of Eden can be created and a vision or version of God can exist. And so in this way, the Hierophant is a teacher or a leader within that space, teaching and propagating. However, it does have an inherent connection to the cosmic origins or the cosmic source, and in the general sense. And so it is just one modality of bringing that light into the masses, bringing that into greater consciousness within the earthly sphere, actually proselytizing or speaking gospels or writing books. And so with the major arcana, the Hierophant, it's all about being at one with integrity of spiritual teaching and also providing insight to the greater cosmic origins to the masses. The world, coincidentally, also has an association with the planet Saturn. So Earth and Saturn for the world are both correspondences astrologically assigned to this card. And Saturn here functions as the boundary maker, the challenger, and it is the creation of that cosmic egg. So we have the actual Garden of Eden within the egg, but the shell of the egg is Saturn creating that boundary, creating that space. And so Earth, with its feminine energy, has an opportunity to conform and be confined within certain parameters and boundaries. So the world represents the ability to take oneself and cumulatively bring oneself into the completion of a project, into the completion of a spiritual enterprise, into the completion of something that has had many challenges along the way. It's almost a celebration of the end of the cycle. It's also about unification of the different polarities. We have the different symbols assigned to the zodiac in each of the four corners. So we have the human head being Aquarius, the eagle here being Scorpio, the highest manifestation of Scorpio, the lion being Leo, and in the bottom left, the bull being Taurus. And so these combined efforts in living in harmony. So we're coming back to the idea of ancestral work and living in harmony with the earth. So when you're living in harmony with the earth, you can then manifest and complete a cycle. So that is the world, unification of polarities, being able to actually ascend and manifest that which you desire. The devil is Capricorn, and the devil has a connection to the lovers. So the lovers card, the two people on here are directly from the lovers card, and they have little tails. The one on the left has a pomegranate, the one on the right has a little flame representing the divine feminine and the divine masculine forces. And the devil is all about the chains that bind us, which are self-imposed, because we come back to this aspect of earth that is also barren and acts as a desert, the infertile lands of earth that are not ripe and abundant the way that we would like them to be. And Capricorn lives within this space. It lives within this austerity, the aspect of earth that is very severe and hard. And so when that austerity takes on a negative valence, it becomes self-imposed limitations. And so the devil oftentimes reflects those self-imposed limitations that we decide all of the self-limiting beliefs that we have, all of the things that we choose to do because we think that it should be a certain way, but we aren't seeing the greater picture. And based on the devil card as well, you can see that the chains around the necks of these individuals are loose. They could easily take them off. And so again, we're going back to this idea of Maya, the illusion of Maya, the prism of multi-prismatic colors and things like that. It's really easy to get trapped in, especially for a Capricorn, negative valence, is to get trapped in the idea of, if I work really hard, I'm going to make all this money and I'm going to have like the best car ever and like the biggest house and biggest mansion and all the money in the world, and it'll be the best thing ever. But then lose that sense of integrity and connection and grounding and value to the earth itself and the cycles of earth that perpetuate it. So that's the devil. Which leads us to talking a little bit more in depth about Capricorn itself. So Capricorn is also assigned to the 2, 3, and 4 of Pentacles. And it is also the very beginning of the winter season. It's the time of the longest night of the year. And this is where we start really diving into the polarities. So it's especially important, like I mentioned earlier, talking about duality and unifying duality into a greater whole, will help us to individuate and develop our spiritual identities, because everything is not actually duality like we think it is. And so with Capricorn, we have the polarity axis of Cancer. And so we talked earlier about gods and goddesses of earth also being associated with water and moistness. And so in the zodiac, all of the polarity points of each of the earth signs are all water signs. And so we have this connection with moist earth. You can't have abundance and fertility without the earth also having moistness. And so Cancer, and within the concept of Capricorn, Capricorn being that harsh desert, Cancer is the motherly, the nurturing, warm, mineralized waters of the Nile coming in to flood the harsh desert and give it the nutrients that it needs in order to grow the crops. So Saturn, in this case, is the father, the austere, severe father who creates boundaries, who works very hard to create the home and to bring in the money and the family. It's a very like stereotypical version of like the man, quote unquote, but Cancer also being the stereotypical version of the woman. But in terms of like the divine feminine and the divine masculine energy, it's about Capricorn being the director. So Capricorn is also with its rulership, or with Saturn's rulership over Capricorn, it's the father of time. And time is non-linear, but it still moves. It moves forward, and time brings with it all of its challenges, and time brings with it the inevitability of change and the inevitability of death and the cycle of rebirth. And Capricorn is the one that navigates it without that added emotion that makes it difficult to overcome the inevitability of death, that makes it difficult to overcome the inevitability of change. Capricorn is that directive force that will keep moving forward. And Cancer is that force, that receptive force that then balances out Capricorn in a way that allows it to soften, so that it's not so severe, like, oh, get your shit together, like you need to feel this and this way about it. Cancer will be coming in and saying, hey, like you need to be a little bit more sensitive in the way that you're trying to communicate these things. And so in this way, these polarity points work together to create the moistness of earth, to create that that ability of earth to be steadfast and beautiful at the same time. you know, the crystallization, the crystals that come from the hot, like gross, thick magma. Those crystals are some of the most beautiful things that we've ever seen in the world. And it's thanks to this Capricorn Cancer polarity that is able to make that happen. So in terms of how it actually relates to the cards, so we get the beginning of the Cancer Capricorn polarity with the Two of Wands. So we have a lot of water in the background, and we also have the color red. So the water in the background here is representing that Cancer polarity, that ebb and flow and the shift and the constant changing of the moon cycles that Cancer has inherently, being the sensitivity. And at the same time, the figure in the front balancing the two pentacles while wearing all of this red being the willpower, self-control. So this person isn't simply like, you know, casting the pentacles up into the air. He's very delicately handling the situation. He's very delicately moving. And it seems like he's almost counterbalancing the wave in the background. And so this card is all about delicately handling a situation with assertion. It's all about being enterprising and cool, calm, and collected, and able to make the severe judgment calls that you need to make, while at the same time being able to balance your emotional and sensitive side so that you can give yourself the softness and space that you need to recoup, recover, or otherwise make a situation less severe. So Two of Wands has that Capricorn Cancer polarity very much integrated within it. The Three of Wands is a little bit more austere in terms of the Capricorn axis. And as we go through the story of the minor arcana cards, we start to see like the development of like we could say this person is starting as like a pure soul and then is slowly discovering the ruin and the gross nature of the world, and then slowly comes back into purity. So that's like the soul's journey through the minor arcana. And so we start to devolve a little bit from this careful, sensitive balance in the Two of Wands, with the Three of Wands being more about trying to find direction and communion with other people and trying to find balance in your own direction while also taking other people's opinions into account and actually building something as a result of it. So this is the more Saturnian side of the equation. The Three of Wands is about creating boundaries, and it's about creating a sense of self-worth and self-purpose, actualizing the ability for creation through the earthly essence and the earth element, but doing it in communion with other people. At the same time, we have a lot of black in this card, which lends it a lot of mental stuff. So we see a lot of black in the swords, especially in the Ten of Swords. There's like a really dark black background. And black in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck oftentimes refers to, and in the Devil card, we see black as well. Black oftentimes refers to confusion and not being able to soften, not being able to actually relieve oneself of one's own like mess of thoughts. And so it lends this quality to the Three of Wands, the Three of Pentacles. I'm sorry if I've been saying wands. I'm still really sick, so I'm like trying my best. The Three of Pentacles. So the Three of Pentacles, it lends this quality of like, you're in the, like if you're in this scene, if you're one of the characters in this scene, you're thinking about how you want to make something. Like you're trying to make something and you have this vision. Everybody else also has a vision of how they want to make something. And so there's conflict. So you're trying to like unify and harmonize this conflict. Like one person wants it one way, the other person wants it another way. Somebody is like being really aggressive and saying like, no, it has to be this way. Otherwise it's not going to be right. And the other person's like, no, it's only going to be right if it's my way. And so it's like this conflict that needs to be harmonized with different people, these different goats butting heads. The Three of Wands can also represent having conflict in the vision of something that you're creating. At the Three of Pentacles. I don't know why I'm stuck on wands, guys. Okay, so the Four of Pentacles. The Four of Pentacles is the aspect of Earth that is starting to lose balance, and the aspect of Capricorn that is starting to tread into the territory of becoming too dissolved in the illusion, and that turns into greed, and that turns into, oh my God, all these prismatic colors and all of this beautiful earth stuff, I need to have it, it's all mine. And we have the elements of civilization in the background of the card that are also reflecting this abundance, this quality of earth, where it's like we have mastered earth, we have mastered everything that there is about earth, we have collected all of the materials that we need for our safety and security. And so now everything else that we're doing is simply like over the top. It's like now it's getting to the point of sucking the earth dry because of how much we want it and how much we want to grab in. So the Four of Pentacles is really, I mean, this guy, he's got his little crown, he's got his fur shawl, he's got this red dress, like asserting his will to the point of overly indulging and overly like being too much of a he's being too much of a miser. That's the word. He's being very miserly. It's like, this is all mine, I can't share it, I don't want to share it. Earth's illusion is mine, and I can create whatever I want, and I'm going to do it my way. So the Four of Pentacles is very much that card that's starting to bring us into less balance, less harmony, which leads us into Taurus. And Taurus is all about harmony. Taurus is all about refinement and abundance and having the values. We were talking about the Hierophant, and the Hierophant being the one that teaches the divine cosmic connection. So Taurus is the beginning of returning back to the harmony with Earth. And the Taurus polarity axis is Scorpio, and Scorpio is death and rebirth. Scorpio is the cycle of life. It is the wild woman archetype, the wild woman that destroys everything around her, that like takes a bat to a TV and just smashes the hell out of it because she's angry and she needs to release that anger. It's the Mahavidyas who are depicted with like heads chopped off, standing on dead bodies, wearing like freaking leopard skin and wielding skull clubs. And it's also Lilith being the rebellion, saying, no, I'm not going to be Adam's wife, I'm going to do my own thing. So Taurus inherently represents these qualities, and Taurus represents these qualities of this polarity, because it needs to have that destruction. It's like the decay of fall. Scorpio is in the fall. It's in the middle of the fall. It's when all of the leaves start to come down, and that great carpet of leaves and detritus and sticks and all of that over the course of the winter, it gets moisture, it gets decomposed, fungus start to eat at it, so that by the time the Taurus middle of spring comes around, it has all of this beautiful, luscious, nutrient-dense soil from which it can grow. And it's the same way that this wild woman archetype, this destructive force of Scorpio and this cycle of death and rebirth, it creates the refinement and creates the abundance of Taurus and that Venusian energy of plenty. And so in the actual cards, the Five of Pentacles is a continuation of the Four of Pentacles. So once we get to a point of inharmoniousness, imbalance with the earth, being too greedy, sucking it dry, we become impoverished. It's the death of us to suck the earth dry, literally. But because of the earth's self-sustaining abilities, because of the earth's adaptability, and because of the earth's self-preservation, it's all part of the cycle. That death of us, let's say it's about environmentalism and how our earth is literally being exploited of all of its resources by corporations. And that turns into a human extinction event. Our bodies become the fertile soils of future generations. Whoever survives, like our dead bodies will have fertilized that soil. And so the Five of Pentacles is that extinction event. It's that part of Taurus where it's like, okay, you have to lose everything in order to work your way back up into something. And so sometimes it can be poverty, financial poverty. Sometimes it can be the poverty of spirit, like losing your connection with God, like having a crisis of faith, an existential crisis. The Five of Pentacles is very much that you have been dislodged from your connection with the earth, with cosmic force, whatever it is. You've been disconnected, and you need to completely remove everything that you ever thought you knew about yourself and do a complete rehaul and figure stuff out. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in this perpetual cycle of poverty. You won't be able to supply yourself with the necessary nutrients and density that is required in order to renew yourself and to create more abundance. It's a very severe card, the Five of Pentacles. So when it goes into the Six of Pentacles, it's almost like this promise. So like the Six of Pentacles is like, if you have a vision of abundance, it mustn't be the vision of abundance that the Four of Pentacles gives us, of greed and sucking everything dry. The Six of Pentacles shows us a vision of abundance where the abundance is shared, and that the cumulative cultivation and harvest is then perpetuated so that that harvest can grow even bigger. Like the point of abundance is that it keeps becoming more and more abundant, but not in a way where everything belongs to one person. Like, the way that we have billionaires continually getting more and more assets and getting more and more wealthy, but for no reason other than for their own gain and for their future generations. Like, do we see that benefit us? Maybe some people do have certain initiatives, maybe, but personally, I don't see that. That's a political conversation. I won't get into that. But the point being here that abundance begets abundance. And so this vision of the Six of Pentacles is talking about, if you share your wealth, then the wealth will beget itself, and that everything else will start to grow and prosper. And so then that translates into, how do you make that real? How do you make abundance beget abundance? And that's where we come in with the Seven of Pentacles. It's about actually planting things. It's about having the work ethic, and it's about having that ability to put in your time and energy into cultivating and actually fertilizing the land and actually planting the seeds that you want to sow into the land, and then watching it grow and giving it the time and space. I mean, this guy is just casually looking at his bush of pentacles, and he's not really doing anything about it. He's just observing it. And he's looking at it and he's like, maybe these leaves are yellow. Maybe it needs more water. Maybe there's insects, some sort of pests in there that need to be removed somehow. Maybe it needs to be treated with neem oil and rosemary oil or something so that The spider mites can go away because that prevents the plant from being healthy and prosperous. He's observing and making a very meditative observation of this plant in this bush so that he can give it the best possible outcome. And so that's what the Seven of Pentacles is all about, is coming within and internalizing a sense of slowing down time and slowing down your perceptual acuity so that you can zero in on the different things that you need to refine so that you can cultivate the value and create the abundance that the Six of Pentacles will promise you should you put that time and energy into it, like the Seven of Pentacles wants us to. So again, like we said before, everything is happening all at the same time, all at once. So you could have these things happen, all three of these cards could be happening all at the same time. But that's where you start getting into like multi-card readings, and that depends on what other context clues you get from other cards. But that's why we're also going back and forth, you know, like the Six of Pentacles is the vision and it's also the reality. The Seven of Pentacles is the vision and it's also the reality, because it can both be cultivating and it can be actually harvesting those pentacles. One of them is falling off of the bush. You can actually be, oh, it's ready for me to like pick. I'm going to pick them now. Or it could be just examining them and waiting for that harvest to be at its fullest potential. So that's when we get into Virgo. And Virgo is the end of the season. It's the 8, 9, and 10 of Pentacles. It's about communion, spiritual effort, and manifestation. What does it mean to be in communion? So we talked a little bit about Virgo in the Air series, and Air is all about bridging the gap between the divine and the underground and everything in between. It's that messenger. And Virgo, in this particular sense, with its polarity point, Pisces, not only does it bridge the gap, but it creates the ability to communicate and the ability to exchange and the ability to not only have dreams and spiritual intentions and cosmic origins, but also manifest them into earthly existence through careful effort and cultivation and careful planning and careful execution and attention to detail, and zeroing in on the ways in which the spiritual can be made manifest. So it's communion. It's actually eating the wafer. So eating the wafer, eating the body of Christ or whatever, like you're eating it and you are in communion with Christ consciousness in that moment. That is Virgo. And so when we're talking about the actual cards, the 8 of Pentacles is about the actual attention to detail. So in order to create the most beautiful potentiality that the 9 of Pentacles and the 10 of Pentacles promises us, you have to be able to put in that hard work. You have to be able to sit at your work table and carefully inscribe those little pentacles with as much detail and careful attention as possible. If you make a mistake, you start over. It's fine. You put it away, you start over. Maybe you smelt down the old pentacle and you create a new one, and you just keep going until it's done. And then you go over and you do a quality check on it, and you make sure that every single engraving is perfect. And then you hang it on the wall, and it's your achievement. And then over time, as you build these things, as you build out your vision, that the Pisces polarity point creates this dream reality that Pisces has, and you build it from the bottom with Virgo. You build into the vision, you get into the 9 of Pentacles, you start living in a world where Everything is beautiful. Everything is within your Garden of Eden specifications. You know, you've created your architectural plan for the Garden of Eden through the Eight of Pentacles. And now in the Nine of Pentacles, you can actually be in your Garden of Eden, be in this Pisces world, be in this land of plenty. And the Nine of Pentacles is all about actually living your dreams. It's a really great card, and it's oftentimes associated with the world of with the word abundance. Personally, I really like it for manifestation of different goals. Like if I have a job that I want to apply to, and I'll put my resume with the card Nine of Pentacles on there, because I have this resume that I carefully crafted and all of this work experience that I have, and I'm combining it with the vision of my reality that I want. That's Virgo. Being able to actually create something and to manifest reality. And spiritually, as the very end of the cycle, the 10 of Pentacles then represents the passage of time. So as you carry forth your vision of reality, as you carry forth the abundance that you create through your efforts, we're coming back to that Two of Pentacles balance, that Two of Pentacles sensitivity and directive energy, its assertion, while also delicately balancing softness. And that turns into family. It's the passage of time, generations pass, and you're continuing to cultivate this abundance. And actually, the Celtic Tarot deck calls this card the passage of time. And I find it interesting that it's referred to in that way, because we have the different generations listed on the card. We have a young child, we have the extremely old person, we have the young adults, blue skies, green pastures, we have all of these pomegranate seeds and dogs. So the 10 of Pentacles is really coming back into a worldly view of the Garden of Eden, that area of time where not only can you create your own vision of reality, but you can be in communion with other people within that vision of reality. So we're thinking back to the Three of Pentacles, where that black background is like the conflict behind people with different versions of what they want to create, and having to work together somehow to create something together. In the 10 of Pentacles, it's just ease. Everybody has the same version of what they want to achieve, and being in communion with the greater vision that's being channeled through a cosmic force. They are able to manifest it and create it into a new reality that they want, and also pass down to their children. And so that is the end of our tarot card exploration. we went into some pretty intense stuff. I like to usually get into more common interpretations, but I felt Earth was one of those that can be somewhat hard to understand. And Earth tends to be, and the Pentacles suit of cards tend to be the most misunderstood, in my opinion. Like, most people assign these cards specifically to finance, and it's not necessarily the case. It can also be a very spiritual suit when it comes to your own innate value and connection to your root. So with that being said, I do want to take this time to promote a special offer that I have on an astrology reading called The Dark Stranger. And it's using the ancient wisdom of astrology to get unstuck spiritually through the ability to learn yourself and get insight into your soul's purpose, discover your past life karmas, and in general, stepping back into your power through concrete goals. So this Dark Stranger reading is 25% off to MeetUp group attendees, both present and past. And I would really love to connect with you on it. If you are interested, you can reach out to me via email and we can set up a discovery call. I'm going to send my email into the Zoom invite right now. And if you're watching on YouTube, I will be putting it in the description box below.